Have you ever wondered what it feels like to plan someone's entire wedding and then find out you weren't invited to the reception? Not as a joke, not as a misunderstanding, as a decision. That was me 8 months ago. And if you told me then that I'd end up being grateful for it, I would have laughed in your face. But here we are. My sister in law, Tara, has always had a gift for making me feel like a guest in my own family. Not in an obvious way, she's too smart for that. It's more like a slow drip. A comment here, a look there, a conversation that stops the moment I walk into the room. My brother Cole married her 6 years ago, and I spent most of those 6 years telling myself I was imagining things, that I was being sensitive, that she was just a lot to handle, and I needed to be more patient. I was 27 when this whole thing started unraveling. Working remotely as a graphic designer, living in a one-bedroom in Austin, doing fine, not rich, but steady. I had a good life, small but mine. The problem was that I was also, apparently, the most useful person in our family when it came to anything that required taste, organization, or follow through. My mom figured this out early. Anytime there was a birthday party, a holiday gathering, a graduation dinner, I was the one coordinating the catering research, building the group texts, making the spreadsheets, tracking RSVPs. My aunt's retirement party, I designed the invitations, arranged the venue, wrote the timeline. My cousin's baby shower, I sourced the decorations, managed the budget, handled the RSVP list. I didn't mind, honestly. I liked doing it. It made me feel useful. Needed. That was the trap. I confused being needed with being valued. The thing about Tara is that she recognized my usefulness immediately and filed it away like a tool in a drawer, something to pull out when convenient, put back when not. She never asked how I was doing, never remembered my birthday without a group notification from my mom. But the moment she and Cole announced they were renewing their vows for their fifth anniversary, a full ceremony, new dress, 120 guests, the works, suddenly I was getting daily voice messages. Hey, I know you have a great eye for venues. Can you just look at a few options for me? I sent you a Pinterest board. Can you tell me which flowers look most expensive without being too expensive? Cole said you know someone who does catering for events. Can you get a quote? I helped. Of course I did. I made a venue comparison spreadsheet with photos, capacity, price per head, and proximity to the hotel block. I contacted 3 florists and got itemized quotes. I reached out to a caterer I'd worked with through a freelance client and negotiated a rate that saved them almost $800. I did all of this between my actual job, a looming deadline for a brand rebrand project, and the general exhaustion of being a person. But I did it because Cole is my brother, because I thought that meant something. The renewal ceremony was planned for the last Saturday of April in the hill country outside of Austin, about an hour's drive. Intimate but elevated, Tara had said. 50 guests for the ceremony, then a dinner reception at a private ranch venue. In February, I got a text from my mom. Not from Cole. Not from Tara. From my mom, forwarding me a message. It said, "The ceremony and dinner are family and close friends only. We wanted to keep it really curated. We hope everyone understands." Curated. I stared at that word for a full minute. I called my mom. "What does this mean?" I asked. She got quiet in that way she does when she knows something I don't and doesn't want to be the one to say it. "I think Tara wants to keep the guest list very tight, sweetheart. Mom, I've been planning this event for 3 months. I got them a discount on the catering alone that basically paid for the centerpieces. What does curated mean for me specifically?" Another pause. "I think you might not be on the dinner list." I felt something cold move through my chest. The ceremony, I'm not sure, Hon. I hung up and called Cole. He picked up on the third ring, sounding distracted, like I'd caught him mid something. "Hey, what's up, Cole? Am I invited to your vow renewal?" A beat of silence that lasted exactly 1 second too long. "Of course you are," he said. "The ceremony, yeah. And the dinner?" He exhaled. Tara wanted to keep dinner really intimate, like just the people who were at the original wedding. "I was at your original wedding, Cole. I was a bridesmaid." I know. Look, She has a lot of friends from her new job who she really wanted there, and we had to cut somewhere, and she thought since your family you'd understand. Since your family. As if that was a reason to exclude me, not include me. I said okay and got off the phone because I knew that if I kept talking, I was going to say something I couldn't take back. I sat on my kitchen floor. I don't know why the floor, I just sort of slid down against the cabinet and I stayed there for probably 20 minutes. Not crying exactly, more like recalibrating. Here is what I knew. I had spent 3 months being Tara's free event planner. I had given real time, real energy, and real professional contacts to make this event happen. And the payoff was a seat at the ceremony, the part where you sit quietly in a folding chair and watch someone else be the center of attention. But not dinner, not the celebration, not the thank you toast or the dancing or the part where you actually feel like you belong. I also knew something else, something I hadn't let myself think about too directly until that moment. 4 years ago, when my parents sat us down to talk about the family finances, my dad mentioned once, briefly, almost offhand, that there was a small fund my grandmother had set aside for me when I turned 30. Not a lot, he'd said, but something, a starting point. She'd done it when I was a baby, apparently, because I was the first granddaughter. He never brought it up again. I never pushed, because it felt like a private thing, and I didn't want to seem like I was counting on money that wasn't in my hands yet. But sitting on that kitchen floor, something nagged at me. A comment Tala had made at Christmas 2 years ago, half under her breath while she and Cole were bickering about a credit card bill. Well, it's not like we don't have options. There's always. And then she'd caught herself, glanced at me, and changed the subject. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now, I was thinking about it very hard. The next day, I called my dad. I told him I had a question about the fund Grandma had set up. He went quiet immediately, the same way my mom had. And that quiet told me everything before he even spoke. Sweetheart, he said, I should have talked to you about this sooner. My grandmother had passed 3 years ago. When her estate was settled, the fund $12,000, which she'd built slowly over decades from birthday checks and dividend earnings, had been moved into a joint account my parents controlled until I turned 30. The plan was to transfer it to me intact. But 2 years ago, Cole and Tara had come to my parents with a problem. They'd overextended on a house renovation. Their contractor had given them a lowball estimate that ballooned, and they were short nearly $9,000 with no good options. They'd already maxed one credit card. My parents, wanting to help, wanting to keep things quiet and avoid embarrassment, had lent them the money from my fund. The agreement, verbal, nothing written, was that Cole would pay it back before I turned 30. I turned 28 4 months ago. There was no repayment. Not a single dollar. My dad's voice on the phone was full of a guilt I recognized, the kind that comes from knowing you made the wrong call and having to live with it. He said he was sorry. He said he thought Cole would follow through. He said he hadn't wanted to worry me. I was very calm. I thanked him for telling me and said I needed some time to think. Then I went for a long walk and I thought, here's the thing about being the reliable one, the capable one, the one who makes things run smoothly and never makes a fuss. People stop seeing you. They see your output. They see the spreadsheets and the vendor quotes and the beautifully worded group texts. They see a resource, and resources don't have feelings to protect. Resources don't need a seat at the dinner table. I had been a resource to Tara for 3 months, a resource to my parents for years. A resource was owed $12,000 that had quietly been redirected without anyone thinking I deserved to know. I also noticed, walking home, that no one had thought to tell me. Not when it happened. Not when I helped plan the event funded partly by my own inheritance. Not ever until I asked. That's the part that settled into my chest and stayed there. Not the money exactly, the invisibility. 2 days later, Tara sent me a voice message. Hey, so I know things might feel a little awkward, but I really hope you're still going to help with the day of coordination. Cole's aunt is flying in from Denver and she gets really anxious at events, and we'd love for you to kind of be the point person for keeping things flowing. Also, can you do a final confirmation call with the caterer? They said they needed someone to confirm the head count, and Cole keeps forgetting. I listened to it twice. She was asking me to be the day of coordinator for an event I wasn't fully invited to. She was asking me to babysit her nervous aunt and confirm catering headcounts for a dinner I would not be eating. She had, without any apparent self awareness, framed this as a favor I might want to do. I wrote back, not a voice message. I wanted every word to be precise. Hi, Tara. I've been thinking about everything, and I've decided I won't be able to help with day of coordination or the caterer confirmation. I also want to be honest with you. I found out recently about the money borrowed from my grandmother's fund. I'm not going to make a scene about it, but I do think Cole and I need to have a real conversation about a repayment plan. I wish you both a beautiful day. She called me within 4 minutes. I let it go to voicemail. Cole called 8 minutes after that. I let that go too. I called the florist I'd connected them with and let her know I was no longer the point of contact. I reached out to the caterer and told them the client would be in touch directly. I removed myself from the planning group chat, the one I had created and had been managing for 12 weeks, with a simple good luck with everything. I'm stepping back. My mom called that evening. She was upset. The way she gets when she feels like the family equilibrium is threatened. She said I was making things harder than they needed to be. She said it was almost the event and this wasn't the time. She said I had to understand that Cole and Tara were under a lot of stress. I said, Mom, they borrowed my money without telling me and then excluded me from their dinner. I'm not making anything harder. I'm just not making it easier anymore. She didn't have an answer for that. My dad called later, quieter, and just said, I understand why you did it. I'm sorry we put you in this position. That meant more than I expected it to. The vow renewal happened on a Saturday I spent at a friend's house in South Austin. Her backyard, a cooler of hard ciders, her rescue dog asleep in my lap. It was genuinely one of the better days I'd had in a while. My phone buzzed a few times, numbers I didn't recognize, which I assumed were vendors looking for a coordinator who no longer existed. I didn't answer. A week later, Cole texted me. Not a call texted. I think we should talk. I replied, I think so too. But I want to talk about the fund, and I want a real plan, not a promise. When you're ready for that, I'm here. He didn't respond for 4 days. Then, yeah, okay. Can we do a call this weekend? We did. It was uncomfortable. He apologized in the way that people apologize when they're also still a little defensive, when they haven't quite let go of the idea that they had reasons. He said he'd meant to pay it back. He said things had been tight. He said he should have told me. I said he should have told me. I said, yes, you should have. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I laid out what I needed: a written repayment agreement, a schedule, something concrete. He agreed. We drafted a simple plan together: $500 a month starting the following month, which would make me whole in about 18 months. It's not nothing. It's not everything. But it's documented, and that's new. The thing I keep coming back to isn't the money, and it isn't even Tara, honestly. The thing I keep turning over is how long I let myself believe that being helpful was the same as being included. How many years I spent being the behind the scenes person because I thought that was how I earned my place. How many times someone handed me a task instead of an invitation and I said yes like they were the same thing. They are not the same thing. I still talk to my brother. We're not back to normal. And I don't know if normal is even the destination anymore. But we're talking, which is more than I expected 4 months ago. Tara has not reached out since my text, which is also fine. Some people only want a version of you that's convenient, and when you stop being convenient, they have nothing left to say. My grandmother's fund will come back to me in installments over the next year and a half. I've already decided what I'm going to do with it. A portion toward a certification course I wanted to take, a portion toward a trip I've been putting off for 3 years, and the rest into savings that are mine alone, with my name only, in an account no one else can touch. My grandmother was a quiet woman who saved money in small amounts over decades because she believed in having something that was hers. She set that money aside for me specifically. I think she would understand what I did with it. I think she'd understand why I finally stopped arranging everything so that everyone else could feel comfortable. I'm 28 years old and I have a lot of years left to be useful. But from now on, I'm choosing who gets that usefulness. And if you want me in the room, you have to actually invite me in. Not to coordinate, not to manage the head count. In. I've been thinking a lot lately about what it actually means to be the reliable one, not in the way people mean it as a compliment. Oh, she's so dependable, she always comes through, but in the way it actually plays out in real life over years, what it costs, what it quietly takes from you while you're too busy being useful to notice. I was that person for a long time. I said yes when I should have asked why. I showed up when I hadn't been invited. I made things run smoothly so that other people could stand at the center and receive the applause. And I told myself it was enough, that being needed was a form of being loved. It isn't. I know that now in a way I couldn't have known it before all of this happened. What Tara did wasn't just rude, it was the end result of a pattern. One I'd helped build by never pushing back. Every time I answered the voice message, every time I sent the spreadsheet, every time I absorbed the inconvenience without complaint, I was teaching her that this was the deal, that I was available and my availability had no conditions. People learn what you allow. That's not me blaming myself for her choices. She made those choices and they were wrong. But I had handed her the blueprint. Cole is my brother, and I love him. And that's exactly why it hurt as much as it did. Because the people who can disappoint you the most are the ones you never imagined would. He knew about the fund, he knew what it meant, and he stayed quiet because staying quiet was easier than having a hard conversation with me. That's not a character flaw you're born with. It's one you develop when you learn that the people around you will absorb the discomfort so you don't have to. I had absorbed it for years. Of course, he thought I would keep absorbing. The moment I stopped, everything shifted. Not dramatically, not like a movie, just quietly. The air changed. I sent one text. I removed myself from one group chat. And suddenly, the entire machine that I had been powering stopped running, and everyone noticed at once. That's when I understood something. Real integrity isn't about grand gestures. It's about the small, unglamorous decision to stop participating in something that diminishes you, even when it's inconvenient for everyone else, even when they call it drama, even when your mom says you're making things harder than they need to be. The hardest part wasn't the confrontation. The hardest part was the silence after, sitting with the fact that I had spent years being less than I deserved to be, and that no one had forced me into it. I had chosen it repeatedly because I was afraid that if I stopped making myself easy, people would stop wanting me around. Here's what I've learned: the people who only want you when you're convenient were never really with you to begin with. And the people who stay, who call, who say, I understand, I'm sorry, those are the ones worth building something with. My dad's phone call wasn't nothing, it was actually everything. I'm still figuring out what the next version of my life looks like, but I know it starts with a simple rule. I will be generous with people who treat my time like it matters. And with the rest, I'll be exactly as available as they made me feel welcome. Not more, not less. Just that.